Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. My old friend Mike Bafari down in Cordoba, Argentina, down in South America. He is our guest this evening. We've interviewed him through the magic of telecommunications with me here in our Portland office at 2712 Northeast Sandy Boulevard here in Portland, Oregon, while Mike is down in Cordoba, Argentina. We have a lot of exciting hemp news for you.
I feel the force.
Our hemp news tonight starts with the federal presidential campaign. Democratic vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris again pledged in a new interview that decriminalizing marijuana would be an administrative priority if she and Joe Biden are elected. The senator discussed the would-be Democratic administration's criminal justice agenda, contrasting it with that of President Donald Trump. She reiterated that cannabis reform would be among their policy goals. Last Saturday, Harris said, quote, "We have a commitment to decriminalizing marijuana and expunging the records of people who've been convicted of marijuana offenses. When you look at the awful war on drugs and the disproportionate impact it had on black men and creating then criminal records that have deprived people of access to jobs and housing and basic benefits," end quote. Harris, who is the lead Senate sponsor of the MORE Act, a bill to federally legalize and deschedule marijuana and expunge criminal records for possession, said last month that a Biden administration would not be, quote, half-stepping cannabis reform or pursuing incrementalism, but that's how some advocates would define simple decriminalization. In any case, the senator has repeatedly discussed cannabis decriminalization on the trail. She similarly said during a vice presidential debate earlier this month that she and Biden will decriminalize marijuana and will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana offenses, end quote. Next story tonight is out of Vermont. Republican Governor Phil Scott has permitted legislation, Vermont Senate Bill 54, to become law, establishing rules and regulations overseeing the commercial production and retail sale of marijuana to adults. The measure became law without the governor's signature. Vermont lawmakers depenalized the possession and cultivation of small quantities of marijuana by adults in 2018, but that law did not legalize any commercial activities involving either cannabis production or sales. 10 states currently regulate adult use marijuana sales. 10 of the 11 states that have legalized adult use marijuana possession have also wisely regulated the retail cannabis market, and until today, Vermont had been the sole exception. This comprehensive legislation was debated and amended over a period of several months by members of both chambers of Vermont's legislature, and is supported by a majority of Vermont voters. Vermont Senate Bill 54 represents an opportunity to bring common sense controls to the adult use marijuana marketplace, which is currently unregulated, unlicensed, and untaxed in Vermont. While the law as written is not perfect, they're confident that lawmakers will continue to further amend the proposed rules and regulations accordingly in a manner that both prioritizes public safety as well as the needs of entrepreneurs looking to enter this space. This is a victory for those who wish to disrupt the illicit marketplace and move forward with an above-ground regulated marijuana cannabis marketplace. Senate Bill 54 establishes rules and taxation rates governing the licensed commercial production and sale of cannabis and cannabis products to adults. Under the plan, retail products would be subject to a 14% excise tax in addition to the state's 6% general sales tax. The potency of herbal cannabis products will be capped at 30%. THC concentrates will be limited to no more than 60% THC. Products cannot be packaged in a manner that appears appealing to children. The new law took effect on October 1st. However, regulators will not begin licensing cannabis-related businesses until the spring of 2022. Missoula, Montana, legalizing adult-use marijuana sales is proposed by two of initiatives on the 2020 statewide Montana ballot. Would yield well over $200 million in new tax revenue in Montana over the next 5 years, according to a study published by the University of Montana at Missoula's Bureau of Business and Economic Research. Authors of the study, which was commissioned by the group New Approach Montana, estimates that passage of the measure I-190 and CI-118 will provide over $40 million in new tax revenue in 2022 and over $236 million in revenue by 2026. Statutory initiative I-190 allows adults to possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana and to cultivate up to 4 mature plants for personal use. The state would impose a 20% tax on retail sales, and revenue from those sales would be directed towards substance abuse treatment, veteran services, health care, and other programs. The second ballot measure, CI-118, amends Montana's constitution so that only those aged 21 or older may patronize the legal cannabis market. This study, an assessment of the market and tax revenue potential of recreational cannabis in Montana, is available online. In an op-ed published in several Montana newspapers just this Monday, U.S. Federal Attorney for the District of Montana, Kurt Ame, called on voters to review and understand the serious ramifications of the ballot measure to legalize cannabis. His op-ed relies on an old reefer madness trope, including gateway theory, addiction, and the unsubstantiated claims that legalization leads to a rise in traffic fatalities. Studies have shown just the opposite. In interviews with Reuters, the British news agency, two former federal prosecutors said Ame's decision to publish his opinion on a state ballot question weeks before the election was unusual. William Nettles, the former U.S. Attorney for the District of South Carolina, went so far as to call the move, quote, an abuse of authority, end quote, and described it as abnormal behavior for a sitting state prosecutor. Barbara McQuaid, a former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, described Ame's decision to weigh in on the question as, quote, highly unusual and improper, end quote. And I worked on a campaign here in Oregon back in 1986, ballot measure 5, to legalize marijuana. And the U.S. Attorney General Ed Meese, under President Ronald Reagan, directed all U.S. attorneys from throughout the western United States to come to Oregon and campaign against the initiative. There's a law called the Hatch Act that forbids federal employees from interfering in partisan politics or any electoral politics. But the federal prosecutors ruled that this was not a political issue, that marijuana legalization was a criminal justice issue. Well, that was 1986. Today, voters in Arizona, Montana, New Jersey, and South Dakota will be deciding on adult use legalization initiatives on Election Day. Also, very far south, down and under, in Wellington, New Zealand, voters are now voting in New Zealand to decide on a nationwide referendum to legalize the possession and use of cannabis by those age 20 or older. The binding measure, entitled the Cannabis Legalization and Control Bill, is one of two ballot questions that will be decided alongside the general election on October 17th. The election was initially scheduled for September 19th, but was delayed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Early voting has already begun. The referendum mandates lawmakers establish rules and regulations permitting the commercial production and retail sale of cannabis and cannabis-infused products. Those 20 years of age or older would be permitted to purchase up to 14 grams of herbal cannabis per day or grow their own plants, up to 4 plants per household. Polling on the referendum has been nearly evenly split for the past several months, with the most recent survey showing supporters leading opponents by a margin of 46% to 42%. If passed by voters, New Zealand will become only the third country, following Canada and Uruguay, to legalize adult use cannabis sales nationwide. Under current New Zealand law, the adult use of marijuana is criminalized, punishable by a fine and up to 3 months in jail. Our next story is from Maine. Adult use marijuana sales began in Maine at a limited number of licensed retailers throughout the state just last week. The sales began nearly 4 years after voters passed a ballot initiative in 2016 legalizing the commercial cannabis marketplace. While lawmakers delayed the people's will for years, this is a historic victory for those of us who recognize marijuana prohibition for what it is, a racist policy designed to disenfranchise blacks and low-income people. This victory would not be possible without an incredible team of advocates who worked around the clock to get this on the ballot and win. And they are heroes for standing up for real justice. Despite the 2016 vote, rules governing adult use cannabis production and sales were not ultimately finalized by state lawmakers until last year, 2019. Maine adults should have access to safe, legal marijuana years ago. Nevertheless, it's encouraging to see it finally happening now. Consumers desire access to a regulated market, not an unregulated and untaxed underground market. In Virginia, qualified patients for the first time have above-ground access to cannabis products dispensed at state licensed facilities. Last Saturday, October 17th, the state's first operational dispensary began providing products to state-qualified patients. State lawmakers in Virginia first approved legislation in 2015 to provide an affirmative defense from prosecution for select patients who possess CBD-dominant extract products. Lawmakers later amended and expanded the law to establish a state-regulated cannabis access program and to ensure that no one may be penalized for their participation in it. Under the program, patients with a recommendation from their physician may possess up to a 90-day supply of cannabis products. Medical cannabis products, as defined under the law, must contain a minimum of 5 milligrams of CBD or THC, and may contain up to 10 milligrams of THC per dose. Products permitted under the law may be in any formulation, including but not limited to preparations like inhalation products, oils, tinctures, creams, sprays, suppositories, lozenges, and gummies. Nearly 6,000 Virginians are registered to participate in this program today. Our next story is from Missouri. State licensed sales of medical cannabis and related cannabis products began in Missouri this past weekend at a limited number of retailers throughout the state, including locations in St. Louis and Kansas City. Voters approved a statewide ballot measure in 2018 legalizing the regulated production and retail distribution of medical cannabis. Home cultivation by qualified patients is also permitted. State regulators have licensed 192 retailers thus far, with the first of those opening for business on Saturday, the 17th of October. Over 65,000 Missourians are registered with the state's medical access program. A press release issued by the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, which oversees the program, praised the speed at which regulators were able to get the program up and running. In Michigan, over 40% of patients with multiple sclerosis say that they've consumed either cannabis or cannabinoid products in the past year, according to a survey data published in the Multiple Sclerosis Journal, Experimental, Translational, and Clinical. That percentage is nearly twice that of the national average. Investigators with the University of Michigan collected data from a national sampling of over 1,000 patients with multiple sclerosis. 42% of respondents affirmed that they had either used cannabis or cannabinoid products within the past year, with 90% of those respondents describing their use as medical. Those utilizing cannabinoids reported that they were most effective for improving sleep and reducing tremor frequency, as well as mitigating nausea and anxiety. This study, Cannabinoid Use Among Americans with Multiple Sclerosis, Current Trends and Gaps in Knowledge, appears in Multiple Sclerosis Journal, Experimental, Translational, and Clinical. that is the end of our hemp news segment tonight. We have an interview with Mike Bafari down in Cordoba, Argentina, talking about developments there and some of our work together in the past. Stay tuned and help us restore hemp. Good night. As long as people are just being locked up for cannabis, then we've got to change those laws, and we've got to restore hemp for energy, folks. That's the real key here. The whole reason marijuana was prohibited was to stop this, to stop hemp fuel being used. Now, this is hemp seed oil with a piece of hemp twine here. This is next week's wick right here. And you can burn this in any diesel engine with no conversion to the engine today. You can pour that right into your diesel engine and turn the key and drive. And that's the reason it was made illegal. It's the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, crony, capitalist, ruling class that have brought us hemp and cannabis prohibition. All right. Well, I would like to introduce our friend and guest in the past, Mike Bifari, directly from Cordoba, Argentina, in South America, through the magic of telecommunication and the internet. Hey,
Right.
Mike.
Hey, how you doing, Paul? Nice to see you. Hi, everybody.
See you too, bro. So there are changes here in America, as you know, with our marijuana market. It's constantly evolving, but you're still dealing with an illegal market. And tell us, and you're working with trying to make medical legal still in
Yeah.
Argentina.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me tell you just a little story. I was in Colombia. We have a little company in Colombia of medical cannabis. Uruguay and Colombia are the
Hey,
most
I
advanced.
have to say, I took you to Colombia the first time you went, right? So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's true. That was about 4 years ago. But since then, we try to build a little company of medical cannabis because, as you know, Uruguay and Colombia have the two most advanced legislations on the matter. So we went there with some friends about 4 years ago. We built this little company. So I was working on the company when this COVID-19 showed up. And we have a little guest house with Donnie Wirschafter in the mountains in Colombia. And I was about to go there, but then I realized that the borders were going to be closed. So I decided to come to my hometown, to my house in the hills of the north of Cordoba, the province of Cordoba in Argentina. And since then, several months ago, I've been starting to have contacts with the government. They got in touch with me concerning legislations for industrial hemp. So we've been working on trying to educate the legislators with an interesting group of people that were all activists, longtime activists. So we've been working with the government, and this last Friday we had two presentations. We had one presentation on the Senate and another presentation on the low chamber, the deputy. Here we have two cameras, right? The Senate and the deputies. And both draft of the laws were presented in these two chambers. So we're very excited that for once in the life, these politicians who were not educated at the time, they can go ahead with transforming the legislation that we had since the military dictatorship. We had the ban on industrial hemp since 1977, when the military dictatorship that was sadly world famous for the kidnapping and disappearance of young generations. Yes, this happened. This happened in the whole.
There.
This happened in the whole South America, in different countries
at different times. It was 74, I believe, under Allende. And both of those were sponsored by our American government. We want to remind our viewers that Henry Kissinger actually gave a list of people to kill
that were
Yes.
murdered in these massacres of people that,
Yes.
one reason or another, the United States government decided they shouldn't be alive.
Yeah, well, you know what happened, and we both been together in Chile on our research on the hemp history. Remember? So, yeah, Allende was kicked out of office. Was kicked out of office by the collaboration with the CIA.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is well known already. But the fact is that I'm happy with what we're doing with the government because, you know, the government had the humility, you know, the how do you say it? The humble attitude to say we don't know much about this industry. We need the people that know. We need the experts. So come and work with us and help us get this through. You know. So I was very excited to collaborate, and at the same time, you know, they changed a couple of rulings, you know, guidelines that were in place of the medical cannabis Argentine law that was from the former president Macri. He made this cannabis law, but you know, they made the law, but actually, to tell you the truth, the law was very restrictive. It was completely restrictive. So this new government is trying to put new guidelines to that law that is already in place. And you know, there are several medical cannabis groups, like, you know, every country has the mothers of the kids with epilepsy or CBD and THC preparations. These are all over the country, you know, several groups all over the country. And they are really into it. You know, they are really trying to pass small village legislations on medical cannabis, you know, like every little town has its own group that is working with the mayor, is working with the what we call here the intendente, people that are in charge of the office of the administrations of little towns. So every single place has their own medical cannabis group, and so I'm very confident that the new guidelines will open the door of restriction. You know, because this is insane. The restriction in a point is insane. You know, because you see, for example, what's going on in other places, you know, like even we can mention here Uruguay, Colombia, even Peru is going forward with new legislation as well. And then we have the big example of Canada and United States. You know, it's amazing if you look back, you know, whatever time period you want to go back, it's amazing what you guys in the States, every single state has achieved. You know, it's very important to understand the big transformation in the market, in the industry, and the civil liberties of getting access, medical access and recreational access. I mean, you guys are, you know, way many years ahead of us, completely whole South America. But the point here is, and what is to celebrate, is that I think that the new government of Mr. Fernandez, is understanding. For example, he's understanding the the cannabis and hemp industry, right? For you know, we made a presentation with Diego Berton. I don't know if you remember him. Diego Berton is yeah, he's a professional of uh, how do you say it? In the fields. I don't know how do you say it. How do you say it? Yes. So both him and we both had a presentation for the government, and it was very successful. So after that presentation, they're going ahead completely with the industrial hemp. And what I've been told is that they completely want to put hemp in the list of in the list of the production schedule. You know, like Argentina has a big amount of productive land, and so they want to put hemp as part of the production
Soy.
plan. Yes.
Argentina is one of the world's biggest producers of soy. Most of that's
Right.
Asia today, I
Yeah,
believe.
it goes to China. But so I thought that this was very important because, you know, whatever decision that Argentina takes in the field of agriculture, it will definitely have a wide impact, not only in the region, but worldwide.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm
true.
excited about it. You know, I've been working with this a long time now, and I'm excited about what's going on. Um and it's a great opportunity that we can have this chat so everybody there can know what's going on. Uh, you know, this is a first-hand information, so I'm really
Yeah.
glad that we're doing this.
So, do you think the legislation will make it through the Argentinian legislature and be enacted?
Yes, because you know the fact that they introduced the draft, both draft in the Senate and the Deputy Chamber, both at the same time, that is
Uh,
a signal that the government has the political decision to go ahead with it.
yeah, yeah. Argentina could be a huge producer of hemp seed, would
Yeah.
completely replace the soy protein, or at least compete with it once the markets can be developed. You know, especially shipping it to Asia, which is, you know,
Yeah.
it's an even better protein than soy protein.
Yes, and of course, if we can do something with the material, you know, like transformation, new
Yeah,
products, creativity around the production. That's what you know we're all talking about here.
right.
And we have, you know, we already have agriculture industry that can be transformed for him. So So we're excited. And even, you know, I don't want to go against the soya producers. I'm just very concerned about the agrotoxics. Um, they've been mistreating the land for several years and decades now. And so we are mostly concerned about the agrotoxics and you know the conditions that the soil suffers after many years of
They wipe
agrotoxic.
out microorganisms that are crucial for life, you know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they're very toxic. That's becoming recognized as the new generation of regenerative agriculture practices to help rebuild the soil, and the microorganisms that live there can
Yes,
take up
absolutely.
carbon out of the atmosphere, you know, can go right into the microorganisms in our soil. But our current agricultural practices destroy those in
Yes.
favor of this monoculture that
Yes.
you know, is dangerous. So we got to see this kind of change. A recent movie just came out called Kiss the Soil. It's out there on Netflix that I recommend, that talks about that. So something to look up. But I definitely try my cannabis garden and try to practice regenerative agricultural practices and care for the microorganisms, and you know, actually we have a lot of praying mantises in our garden, you know, so they're eating everything. Our plants are very healthy. The praying mantises and the other ladybugs, they're
Nice.
they're
Nice.
a lot better for us
Wow.
all, you know.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about what I went through all these months here with the lockdown. You know, we had a severe lockdown at the beginning. I
Yeah.
came
You
I
were in
came back
Colombia, right, at first, but you went back home from Colombia
I came
to
back I came back home the 18th of March.
uh-huh.
So the lockdown was the 20th. The 20th of March, we had a severe lockdown by the government,
Yeah.
and it was very successful at the beginning because you know the hospitals were in bad shape, so they had a lot of time to put them together. You know, the last government we had was I can say a
Declared
right wing government. You know,
Yeah,
and
kind of like the Republicans.
they made a big mess with the economy. Uh, they had a big debt from the IMF. The biggest debt in the world, I think, and so it was terrible. We suffered with the last government. Even I was not living here permanently like I am now. I have my three daughters and my grandson. I have one little grandson now already, so I'm happy with that. You can imagine. And but the fact is that after the pandemia, um, because of the lockdown, we are even in a worse economic situation. The working class people are bad. The government's been helping a lot. They've been helping with some money, and they've been helping what we call the small and medium-sized companies, small and medium-sized companies to be able to float. Meanwhile, the water wasn't killing you, drowning you down, because it was a very, very bad situation. So I thought that the hemp opportunity, to promote hemp in this particular situation where the country needs to improve all the productive lines and needs to improve all what has to do with exportation. I thought that the government would have a chance to take this opportunity with the hemp industry. And I was right. They are completely on board with this. And well, for us that part of my activism life already, Paul. So for us that we've been on the first line for several years, to have this chance to work with people that don't know a lot about our plant, and they are willing to understand, and they are willing to make the politic decision. So it's exciting. It's really exciting. I'm happy with it.
Good. Congratulations on that. I know you're also in your region there in north central Argentina. You're experiencing a lot of wildfires. I know your family's impacted by that. They're drowning. We of course have been doing that. Australia burned all of last
Yeah.
winter. It seems like the Siberia is on fire up in uh, Russia, and
Yeah.
it's happening on a global basis. We're
Yes.
experiencing and the pandemic uh,
Yeah.
and the economic downturn. It's a global situation that we're all having to deal with right now. But
Yes. Terrible. It's terrible. Yes, I think I can tell you about our experience here in the area, in this zone. Yeah, we've been having in South America several wildfires, like even in the Amazonas for several months in the Amazonas.
and droughts, like I hear that the city of Sao Paulo, which is the largest city in the Western Hemisphere in Brazil, they're
Yeah.
out of water. And what is it's like 30 million people or something like that there, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's been a very dry season. It's all fuel here. All the bushes and the forests were surrounding us. I live in a very, very wild area, which we have, very native forest. We have native forest. And we've been having wildfire for the last couple of months. We had a rain like about 4 days ago, but unbelievably, one lightning turn on another fire, a lightning.
That happens.
And
We had a lot of our fires here recently,
yeah,
especially in high wind conditions.
yeah, and especially when you have this dry season.
Yeah.
Some of the fires, some people say that they might be done on purpose. I don't have the proof to say that, but this is a crazy world we're on now. So maybe people for some future type of business that I'm not sure about, they can do that, which is absolutely banned by the law, and they're criminals and they should go to prison for that. But I don't have proof to say somebody did it or not.
Yeah. Well, if
But
you did, you
what I
could get
can tell
yeah.
you that I just saw, because I just came from the main headquarters and here in the mountain with, I had three of my daughters working there right now. Because there are several things to do. We have a couple of hundreds of volunteers in the fire first line. So we are making meals and making snacks for them, like granola, fruits, and all type of snacks and meals for the first line workers. So the level of organization and commitment and solidarity is
Yeah.
something that everybody should know, and we should be proud. As humans, we should be proud of what these young generations are doing to combat the fire in several places here.
Let,
So that is something that has to be said.
let's talk about some work you've done outside of there in Argentina here recently. You have that shirt on, I see, from the centurion, the Roman centurion from Guadalajara.
Yeah.
Guadalajara. And I'm going back with Elvie to
Yeah.
the Jalisco Cup here next month, and
Oh,
it's pretty exciting.
that is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm very glad that Ivy
But
can make.
last year we were there together at the Jalisco Cup, and then we went directly from there to Medellin, Colombia, and
Yes.
Expo Mediweed. And you've been working in Colombia with Don Wirtschafter for many.
Yes.
Tell us about, first of all, the hotel in Toribio, the city in the Cauca, the cannabis producing area near the city of Cali.
Yes. Well, we've been doing this with Donnie Wirtschafter. We built up a guest house, and it's in a very particular place because it's indigenous territory. There are three different territories on the area, and it's called Toribio, San Francisco, and Tacuello. So these three locations are in a big territory that belongs to the Nasa people, Nasa Yuwe people, or the Paeses. This is a great community that has several hundred of years there, and we managed to make a guest house. But the problem that we have is that these territories are where all the campesinos make their illegal crops. So we have like about
Cannabis
60,000.
and coca leaf being produced there, right? Cannabis, coca leaf.
Yes, it's a gray area concerning the legal aspect. Is a gray area because inside the indigenous territories they're allowed to plant, but then when they go out of the territory, you have the white police, or the government police or the national police that is taking care of the borders. And because cannabis is still illegal for recreational, and most of the pot they make there goes for recreational in the big cities like Medellin, Cali, Bogota. So, you know, when you have this prohibition around a place where they are producing so many pounds, they are producing so many kilos.
That's one thing I got to say here. It's so cheap in Colombia for cannabis. It's like $6-7 per pound, you
Yes,
know, 6 or 7 US dollars per pound. And
yes,
so, Colombia has taken over the rose industry, the legitimate
yes,
flower
yes,
rose
yes,
industry, because they
yes,
can compete with this year-round crop. You've always got 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness year-round in Colombia.
yes.
So,
Yeah,
um,
they are big exporters of flowers.
yeah,
So, they have a good medical law. But I was telling you about the hotel. So the hotel is located in a place where it's indigenous territory. Most of these indigenous groups are trying to be legal, but they have 60,000 crops. 60,000. So you've seen pictures that you see there that it's difficult to find elsewhere. For example, you see an 18-year-old kid who's taking care of 700 plants or 1,400 plants and says, no, this is not much. In my parents' house, I have 2,000 plants. But what are you going to do with this? Because in advance that the family is going to lose 40% because of the botrytis. So,
So when you say that, you mean organized crime, right?
no. I'm saying he's going to lose 40% because of the gray germ, the botrytis.
The fungus, the
Yeah,
bacteria.
fungus,
You're going to lose
yes,
because it's very wet and humid there.
it's very wet and humid and it rains a lot, so everything grows a lot. But you have this fungus that will probably take 40% of the crop in advance. You can know that. So we were trying to educate them. We were trying to tell them that is a better quality cannabis can make a difference, and also we were trying to educate concerning the lights because all these crops have lights in the night because they have 12-hour darkness. So they need to molest the plants during the night. So
Yeah, you've got
one
to
flower when they're tiny.
vegetative cycle. That way,
Exactly.
the plants get bigger. Otherwise, you have to have a lot more clones, to fill
Exactly.
the area because they're going to start flowering immediately.
Yes. So
So
we've been trying to educate these people. Friends. We have mutual friends with you, Paul. Like Jorge Cervantes. He's been trying to help us there. We've been working with Jorge around there. There's other friends that they've been coming to the hotel, but then the whole area, because it's a illegal crop productive area. They have some criminal groups around. They have several criminal groups around, which the authorities cannot manage with them. So in certain times of the year, it can be dangerous to go there. It's shame. I have to say it. I'm not happy saying this, but it's the truth because we don't want nobody to get hurt. But otherwise,
our friend Clay, who helped produce this TV show, in terms of working in the studio with our producer Bill, who's doing it right now. But Clay moved there to
yeah,
Toribia, and it's there right now, right? He's there kind of full time anyway.
yes,
Many of us
I
remember
invited.
him, being locked up in El Salvador for a while,
Yeah,
but
I
that's
know.
another story. But now he's living there in this area all the time.
Well, let me tell you this. Let me tell you for the people that are hearing the show, you gringos have to be very careful when you come to South America because there might be people that want to harm you here.
Rich. They know that
Uh,
Clay is not rich, though. I think that's what protects him, right? So, he,
right. So,
he,
so, so he was a little disorientated to say the least when he got to El Salvador, and he got himself in trouble for nothing, just for carrying a little small amount of cannabis. Um, yeah, he's living there for like about 3 years now, I think.
he almost died
I
in El Salvador.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
he almost passed away in Salvador. That was very tough for him. But thanks to you and thanks to people like Donnie Wershafter, myself, and several other people, we managed to pull him out of there. And now he's back in Colombia. He's back in Colombia. He's happy, and he's making a living there. And he's not scared at all. Sometimes I'm more scared than him. I said, "Oh man, you should better be careful here. Sometimes during the year, it's not safe, in my opinion, right? Uh, but he's not afraid at all, and he's making a happy life.
thank goodness. So you're in another part of Colombia. Weren't you working with another business? you want to talk
Yeah.
about that?
Yes, I'm helping my good friend Alejandro Londoño, the famous Gato. You guys can check Alejandro in Marimberos. You know, if you put in the Google, you put Marimberos, everybody can check out
Gotcha.
his work. Yeah, his work. So we've been working together because, you know, he has a company in Cali, and he has this good hemp seed. You know, he has a lower than 1% THC, and like about 2% or 3% CBD. And it's this particular strain has, you know, good material for seed, for all hemp seed oil, and also for the herd. You know, the 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 branch, right? All
That fiber
the
is
woody material, the woody material.
soft, and
Yes.
the herd fiber is the interior part.
So it's a great strain for biomass production, and so we want to bring it to Argentina. So at the same time that we were working on the draft for the industrial hemp draft, we were working with the government and the institute that takes care of the importation of livestock. So we almost have that ready to go for a research crop here in La Plata. You know, in the province of Buenos Aires, we're going to make a research crop with Gato strain. So I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that because it's going to be the first time in this modern area that we have hemp back. You know, if you go to several municipalities inside Argentina, you know, like here in the province of Cordoba, you know, Cordoba is a huge province. It's like, you know, it's bigger than Germany. And in several municipalities, you can read the word hemp, and you can read what the producer is supposed to pay as a tax for in those days. But we're talking about, you know, 1920 legislation, 1920,
Yeah.
1930. We had several
That was
operations.
America, when America was a colony, that farmers who had more than 40 acres had to grow 10% as hemp for the British Crown, and that was their tax.
Yeah,
Because
but
the British ran on hemp.
that was in the 17th century, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's a couple hundred years ago,
Right.
250.
Right. But I'm talking here about the 1920s. We had several operations.
10 years ago.
Yeah, right. So we're trying to educate them back, to bring it back. And, you know, for example, these are things that the new government is supposed to be doing because, for example, the ban on industrial hemp, which is not the same ban as marijuana, but, you know, the ban is from the 1977 military dictatorship. So it's going to be you know, everybody's going to be happy if the government takes the ban out of industrial hemp.
Yeah.
Even
Good.
for political reasons, you know, because we are in an era of human rights and democracy, and, you know, we don't want to go back to the dark days of the military dictatorship and the kidnappings and the violence, you know.
Yeah. God
So,
forbid. God forbid.
right.
So we should
So
probably wrap it up. What is there anything you want to say in closing, Mike?
no, I just want to send everybody a big hug, and I have the sweetest memories from Oregon, and I wish you guys very good luck for the coming election. I think it's key for the future of the United States. And, you know, what happened in the States, as we were saying with Argentina's farming land, whatever happens in the States in any of the fields that you want to touch has a big worldwide impact. So I wish you guys good luck with that,
Thank you.
and big hug for everybody.
All right. Thank you, Mike. It's good seeing you, bro. Hope to
It's good
see
to
you
see you, Paul.
here or there or somewhere in between. People don't realize once you get to Colombia, you're at the equator, and that's like halfway to where you're at. You know, so you go
Exactly.
all Colombia, you're at the equator, then you're on the other side, kind of at the same latitude as we are. You know,
Exactly. Yes.
Argentina kind of like half of America and all of Canada, in terms of going down up to the polar region.
Exactly. It's very long. It's not as wide as the States, but it's long.
Yeah.
And
All
we
right.
have Chile right beside.
All right. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you
Big
soon.
hug, big hug for everybody. My pleasure.
You, bro.
Well, he's a hit at the Hemp Fest rally and a kick at the hemp stalk too. Strutting his fudge and brownies, and he wants to share with you. 'Cause he's the candy man, a sugar shaking, fudge breaking, brownie baking son of a gun. 'Cause he's the candy man, a sugar shaking, fudge baking, brownie baking son of a gun. Do the strut. He's got a cannabis recipe, coconut and chocolate too. He's a candy-coated brother, spread sweetness to the crew. 'Cause he's the candy man, a sugar shaking, fudge baking, brownie baking son of a gun. 'Cause he's the candy man, a sugar shaking, fudge breaking, brownie baking son of a gun. Do the strut. He's the candy man, a sugar shaking, fudge breaking, brownie baking son of a gun. He's the candy man, a sugar shaking, fudge breaking, brownie baking son of a gun. Do the strut.
All right, thank you. I saw. We're going to start with something we had last week as well. It is a bottle of Father Dialis's cough medicine. Here it is, Father Dialis. It's actually a full bottle. This is circa 1908, 1910. It's right at 98 to 100 years old. And this bottle contains a cough remedy that's been shown never to fail, according to the little letters on the side of the bottle. And it's opium, cannabis, indica, heroin, alcohol, and chloroform. And it's guaranteed never to fail. It'll probably just knock you out. You want to make sure you don't take too much, or you won't even breathe. No less, not cough. But it is an antique, and it's part of the THCF Medical Museum that you can see pictures of some of this collection on the web. Right next to it, we have a label under glass bottle. This is from an apothecary or a drugstore circa the 1880s. We have about a dozen bottles like this in our collection. Next door, we have the cannabis hemp oil seeds. This is seed oil, high in the omega-3, 6, and 9, the LA, GLA, and LNA oils that are essential to our lives and cell formation. I take 6 or 8 of these a day for the good, healthy fats. Now, if you press hemp seeds and get the seed oil out, after you press it, you'll have this left over, hemp flour. Hemp flour is a protein-enriched, gluten-free, whole-grain flour that imparts the nutty flavor of hemp into a wide variety of baked goods. So we recommend that. And then next door, we have hemp nuggets. These are hulled hemp seeds. They taste like, as we said earlier, cross between sunflower seeds, walnuts, and cashews. They are good.
The book's credibility got a boost from Jack's discovery of this 14-minute documentary. Supposedly made by the U.S. government 5 years after the Marijuana Tax Act. Its purpose was to encourage farmers to grow outlawed hemp during World War II.
Long ago, when these ancient Grecian temples were new, hemp was already old in the service of mankind. For thousands of years, even then, this plant had been grown for cordage and coarse cloth in China and elsewhere in the East. But now, with Philippine and East Indian sources of hemp in the hands of the Japanese, and shipment of jute from India curtailed, American hemp must meet the needs of our Army and Navy, as well as of our industries. In 1942, patriotic farmers, at the government's request, planted 36,000 acres of seed hemp, an increase of several thousand %. The goal for 1943 is 50,000 acres of seed hemp. For to grow hemp legally, you must have a federal registration and tax stamp. This is provided for in your contract. Ask your AAA committeeman or your county agent about it. Don't forget,
Jack often staged public showings of hemp for victory to validate his history of the plant. He also used the film as an example of government deception and hypocrisy. But he was stunned one day in 1988 to get a call from a newspaper reporter questioning the authenticity of the film.
Well, Mr. Hare, we went out to check the information, and we found nobody that would corroborate your story, that this movie was even ever made. You said this movie was made by the United States government, this movie Hemp for Victory, that if there would be any evidence that the government ever made such a film, it would be in the Library of Congress, it would be in the Department of Agriculture. It is in neither place.
His reputation on the line, Jack and his friends went on an excursion to Washington, D.C.
We were just determined to find the documentation that made it a credible government movie made by the U.S. government and not made by Jack. We didn't see it as detective work. We just saw it as we were on a mission. We're on a mission from God.
Many others before Jack had searched the Library of Congress for proof of the documentary's existence and found none. In a day of digging, Jack ran into the same lack of evidence.
After deciding to give up, we decided to give it one more try.
In a dusty old book, hidden among clutter in a back room, they found it. The official Library of Congress documentation. Indeed, the film had been made by the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
hemp for victory.